Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I know you can't talk, but if you're there, you can wave. It would be nice to see you. Yes, nice. Happy to see you here. I just give a bit of time for everyone to join, and then in 2 minutes we will really start. Nice, we're really reaching 90 participants, so we're a big group again today. Nice to see you all. If you like, you can switch on your camera. You cannot unmute because we're a big group. But you can switch on your camera if you like, or say hi in the chat. I will be starting in a minute.
The number is still rising. We are 119 at the moment. So
Yeah, more and more people joining. I see there's some read AI meeting notes. I will take these out of the meeting because we don't need recording. We have already recording. So sorry if this is yours, I will take it out. Okay, there's still people entering. Welcome if you just entered. We're reaching 130 participants. Very nice to see that there's still so many people. Let's just get started and let's see for those who will still be joining, but I will start for now. So welcome to this already third impact webinar of Erasmus Plus. The webinar of today is about monitoring and evaluation, and we're very happy to see you here again or for the first time. So my name is Karen Roosendaal. I work for MDF Training Consultancy. I'm here together with my colleague Sam Boering.
pleased to meet you.
Yeah. And we've been asked by NAVIC, so the national agency in the Netherlands from Erasmus Plus, to host these webinars to tell you more about impact. And we're very excited to be here with you. I'm not sure if Bas is here in the meantime, not sure. Or another colleague of Erasmus Plus at the moment. No, maybe they will join later. But if you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can add them in the chat and we'll see if we can answer them or if we ask someone from the national agency. So, like I said, this is the third webinar. It's actually a series of 4 webinars. In the previous 2 webinars, we focused on understanding impact. So we looked at what is actually the definition of impact. And we also looked at, like the second webinar, at how can you define impact before application. So once you know this, like what is impact and how you define it, then we come to the third one and understand, like, okay, how can you then monitor and evaluate your impact during the implementation of your project? I'm curious to know, for those who are here now, did you actually attend webinar 1 or maybe 2 or both? And for that, we have a poll, and my colleague will start it. So you can answer in a poll, like, did you attend maybe both webinars, or webinar 1 or webinar 2, or maybe it's the first time for you to join in here.
Okay,
Nice.
yeah, it's going up still.
Many people still responding. Yes, so let's have a look at the results. As you can see, there's actually a lot of people here new. So welcome. Very nice that you're here. 65, so about half of you is attending this webinar for the first time. Good to know. Also good to know maybe for you that the other webinars, we have recorded them as well, and they're available on websites of NAs. Maybe not all NAs yet, but Navik is sharing them, and you will be able to find them back. Also nice to see that there is 27%, so 35 of you who attended both webinars. So you're real, impact ambassadors you're becoming actually, because you are already in the third one. So nice to see you back. Welcome back. And you'll know how it works, these webinars. We're going to do a lot of interaction. So it's not Sam and me who are going to talk for the coming 1.5 hours. It's also you going to work in groups and answering the polls or chats questions. And some other people attended one or only one webinar, but also very nice to see you back. So nice to see this. So let's continue to the next one, because especially for those who didn't attend before, maybe it's good for you to know that these webinars are not standalone. They're linked to the Erasmus Plus Impact Handbook. You see it here, and we'll also share a link in the chat to this handbook. And this handbook has also 4 chapters, and each chapter relates to one of those webinars. So if you want to dive a bit deeper into the content, you can read this handbook, you can go further. There's also a lot of links and materials there that you can click on to go further and deeper. And hopefully together with these webinars and the handbook, it will help you to prepare better for achieving your impact and to also measure that really. Okay, now a bit of the rules of the how we're gonna work together in this Zoom, because we're a big group. We're like almost 160 people. Like I said at the beginning, you're all automatically muted for the whole webinar, with the exception, of course, in group work, because there it's very nice if you can talk to each other. But in the plenary, we mute you so that we don't have any background noise. It's nice to activate your camera if you like, nothing mandatory, of course, but especially in the small groups, it would be nice to activate your camera so you can see each other and you can really connect to each other. It's also nice if you know a bit who you are. So if you can use or rename yourself, so click on your own video, or there's like these 3 little dots which you can click on, and then you can rename yourself. And it would be nice if you put your name, the country where you're from, and the organization that you work for. And I give you a bit of time to do it. I already see some people making some changes very fast. Because then you can also scroll a bit through the participant list and see, oh, who's actually here. See that we're from many different countries. And maybe you see an organization that you're interested in, and you can start also chatting with each other, of course. Nice. I see Germany, Austria, Netherlands, Finland. What else? Italy. I see. What other countries? Ireland and Finland. Nice. Many different countries present in here. So great. And if you have any questions to us, like as you said, you're muted, so you cannot ask them right away, but you can ask them in the chat. And we will see if you respond to it directly in the chat or if you keep it for the Q&A, because we'll go through this webinar for approximately 1.5 hours, and afterwards we will have enough time left for Q&A. So you can also stay at the end of the webinar to ask any question you still might have. I hope this is clear and that we can, oh yeah, one more thing I wanted to say is this webinar is recorded so that we can share it afterwards on the websites of the NAs. I hope this is fine for you, but just to inform you that you're aware that this is recorded. So the recap of the last two ones, especially for those who weren't there in the last two webinars. So what I said, we focused on designing your project's results and activities. And in short, what we discussed is actually that every Erasmus Plus project supports activities that will bring about change or results. And these results, we call them outputs, outcomes, and impact. And in other words, so those outputs are what your project delivers. Outcomes are about who and what is changing. And impact is really this desired long-term results. And thinking about your project impact, it starts already at the design of your project. So don't think about it at the end, but really it's the best to start about thinking in the design. And there's two different ways to do that. We call this approach 1 or approach 2. And in approach 1, you start really defining, envisioning your impact, your desired dream, as we also called it. And so you go for the dream that you want to achieve, and then you reason backwards towards your outcomes, your outputs, and only then you define your activities. Another way, which is sometimes a bit easier to do, is that you have maybe already defined your activities, but then you start like thinking, okay, but what do those activities contribute to? So what are the direct results, the outputs, and what behavior change do we then bring about with the outcomes, and then what impact do we want to achieve? So you can also do it this way. We always say it's the nicest to start with the impact first and then reason backwards, but it's also a bit more difficult, so the other way around is also fine. This approach and also defining all these different results, you can find back in the project design form of Erasmus+. The link is already shared by my colleague, Sam. Great, thank you. So if you haven't seen it before, I definitely recommend you to open it and to save it somewhere. It can help you to define your results for your project. So that was it for the first two webinars. So now let's have a look at what we're going to do today. So in this webinar, we will take you to the next step, and the monitoring and evaluation. With the webinar today, we aim that you can differentiate between monitoring and evaluation, that you understand the purposes of monitoring and evaluation, that you can identify the elements of a good indicator, and that you can reflect on using qualitative monitoring and evaluation methods. So how are we going to do this? We will first discuss what is actually monitoring and evaluation, and the reasons why you actually gather monitoring and evaluation data. Because often we start doing it and we don't think about how we're going to use it. And if we know better how to use it, we will gather probably more targeted the data. Then we will have a look at the difference between quantitative and qualitative monitoring and evaluation. We will also practice how to define indicators. And lastly, we will reflect on using qualitative data and M&E methods. Yes. So let's have first a look at the definition of monitoring and evaluation, and as well as the reasons why we monitor and evaluate our projects. So let's start with a bit of a quiz to see what you already know about the difference between monitoring and evaluation. So we will have a poll, but actually it's a quiz with 4 statements. And in these statements, every time you read the statement and then you define, do you think it's related to monitoring, or do you think that statement is related to evaluation? And some will share the statements now. Great. So try to reflect for yourself for each statement. Is it monitoring and evaluation?
I don't see anything happening.
Oh, people don't see the quiz. That's
Okay.
strange. Okay.
And then I'll relaunch it. Just a second.
Yeah, I'll try it again. Does it work now?
Okay.
Great.
And still the numbers are going up. 120 answers.
Nice. Okay, a few seconds
Okay.
left. Okay, and let's have a look at what you answered.
Okay. Let me say a few things. I see that the first question, the effectiveness of project, indeed, we have a correct answer. And that is evaluation. 98% of the people were correct in this answer. So that's really a good score. The second question, we see that provides ongoing feedback during project implementation. 93% said monitoring, which is indeed the correct answer. So, okay, also a good score. A few people said evaluation. So that is interesting that some people had a different idea about what evaluation is in the context of projects. Ensures that projects are on track and functioning as planned. 99% said, hey, monitoring. Also, great to see that people have a good understanding of the notion of monitoring there. And looks at the outcomes and impacts achieved evaluation. I see we have a very high score on all of the answers, Karin. That seems to be good. Huh?
Right, yeah. I see
Okay.
that some people couldn't see it, so I added the print screen in the chat for those who couldn't see it, the results
Okay, that's a pity.
on the questions. Um, so nice to see that you actually, more than 90% of you always got it correct. So let's have a look at the differences. But it seems you already are very much aware of it. So the difference between monitoring and evaluation. So monitoring is regular information gathering during project implementation. So you do it on the go. Sometimes you do it monthly, sometimes quarterly. It depends on your type of project, but you gather information all the time. This information can lead to small decisions. So if you need to maybe speed up your process, change your activities a bit, etc. And the focus often in monitoring is on your activities and your outputs. So really like what do you do and what are the direct results of it? Then evaluation, you often do that at the end of the project or halfway, which we also call the midterm evaluation. So very often it's already defined from the beginning on when you will do this evaluation. And it leads more often to bigger decisions because you go a bit deeper into what you have achieved, why it has been achieved or not. And that can lead to bigger decisions of changing your project. And in evaluation, you more often focus on outcomes and impact. So you more instead of looking at only like what activities did we implement and what direct results did we achieve, with evaluation, you more often look at like what did we really change, what change did we bring about, or maybe not, and what should we then change in our activities accordingly. So it can be leading to bigger decisions. I'm curious to hear from you, and you can share this also in the chat. Like, do you do systemic monitoring? And do you usually do project evaluations? And maybe you can also explain very briefly why. So you can share this in the chat, and if you talk about monitoring, you can add a 1. Or if you talk about evaluation, you can add a 2. So the questions are also in the chat. I'm very curious to hear from you if you do this monitoring systemically and why, and if you do also your project evaluations.
I do hope that you put in the why as well, Christina. That would be nice. And then add 1 and then why you are doing it. That would be okay. Okay. Okay, many people are coming up with examples, monthly online meetings, I see, internal reporting intervals, and people have been using this. And then I hear something about external and internal monitoring, and I see to keep track of effectiveness. I think this may be more about monitoring, but there's different ways of doing it. Feedback from students and teachers I see coming up. And the Kandinsky College, Dave Van Wey says, more evaluation and monitoring. After the project, we get some time to reflect and think back whereas during we tend to get up in the logistics. Okay, monitoring is difficult during implementation, but we take some time to reflect for further learning. We normally do both. Okay, so a lot of things coming up. I cannot talk about everything that people put in, but I do see that many people are actually really engaged in monitoring and evaluation. And that's nice to see. Helping adjust and calibrate with our partners, required with Erasmus Plus, where we do it because we need to. Quarterly meetings of the project board. Good to keep in touch with project teachers. Monitoring mostly together with partners and evaluation also with youth. Okay. Feedback from every activity from participants, lots of things coming up. Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, I see also very interesting, someone says like, okay, behavior change is not easy to evaluate, so we usually do not cover it. And indeed, I think that is often a tendency, right? It's difficult, so we just do what we really are required to do, and then the behavior change is difficult. But maybe it's interesting to reflect upon yourself, like, why do you evaluate? What do you really want to capture? And maybe this behavior change, even though it's difficult, it might be very important because it says something about if you really bring about change.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about a bit later also in this webinar. Yeah. But we think it's really important to still try, even though it's difficult to try to do that. Yeah. And I also see some people saying like, yeah, we do evaluation because it's a requirement for Erasmus Plus. That's where it makes sense. I think often that's the case, right? We monitor and we evaluate because it's a requirement, and we just do it and we report upon it, and that's it. But it's also interesting for yourself, like, okay, what else can we get out of it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also see that someone is saying we are going to have an evaluation for the next months, but that's still a struggle, as that's absolutely often the case. And it's difficult to really evaluate whether you have done what it is that you wanted to do, but also to achieve basically what it is that you wanted to achieve. And that is this results framework that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And we see that Maud is talking about that they're having a monitoring evaluation framework in line with the strategic plan and compliance with reporting requirements. So it seems they have a good system in place. Yeah.
Yeah. And last thing, I see someone also saying, we do evaluate and we focus mainly on outcomes. And I think that makes perfectly sense. And like, it's sometimes very difficult to measure your impact, depending also how high is your impact. In some projects, we say like, okay, we aim for happy people or an inclusive society, etc. And that's very difficult to measure. and then the outcomes are often more concrete, so then it's easier to measure these. And yes, those outcomes are often about behavior change. So nice to read that you evaluate them. Okay, let's move on. Very nice to see that you're all monitoring and evaluating, but for different reasons and different levels. But let's actually see, like, so why would you do this monitoring and evaluation? I read quite some responses already in the chat. And we capture them actually as the main reasons are for learning. We need to learn. We need to know what we can do better, or if there's a need to do different things, right? If you evaluate your results and you see if results are happening or not and why, if you understand that, you can learn how you can do things better or differently in the next time. And that's very much linked to decision making. Right, so if you have this information, you can make decisions in like adjusting your project, and for that you need often good arguments, backed by evidence, also to get people on board. Sometimes to adjust your project, you need this evidence. So then your monitoring or evaluation data can help. Accountability, third reason, mentioned also by many of you. Yeah, you just needed to also report. We need to show organizations that have funded or supported the project. In this case, if you have an Erasmus Plus project, yeah, you just basically need to report upon what have you done and what have you achieved, because you also promised something to do with the money, and then it's also nice to see what you have done and what you actually have achieved. But maybe it's also accountability to other actors. We often see accountability to those donors or funders. But accountability is also like towards other people who have invested time in this project. So it's also nice for those people who participated in your project or partners to see what are actually the results, because they maybe invested time, energy, money, etc. also. Visibility can be another reason. It's always nice to also show your results. That can give a good image to your organization, what you have done and what you have achieved. Often we like to share like, okay, we have done this, but people like even more to read what you have really changed. So there again, it comes to, okay, it's important to check at your outcomes. What have you changed? What has changed thanks to your project? And to show that in your website, social media, etc. And last is about stimulating dialogue. If you know better what's happening and why, then you can also bring all stakeholders on the same page, like partners you work with, or maybe you are looking for new partnerships, and this information can help you to discuss what's happening and revise strategies together and establishing new partnerships. So many different reasons. Again, if you want to read more about it, it's also written in the handbook. In chapter 3.2, these reasons are also outlined. So now we move towards the monitoring and evaluation of your projects, and Sam will guide you through this part.
Okay, I hope you see it correctly.
No, not yet.
Not yet. That's always the issue. Then I'm hoping that it will be done.
We see your split screen.
Yeah, it's just a second.
Yeah.
I hope it is okay now, Karin, or not yet?
Nope. We see your presenter view.
Then
maybe retry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's still again. Okay,
yeah.
Never mind then. Okay, so let's have a look at the definitions that we're using and the reasons why we do. But we have already looked at the definitions, but let's have a closer look at monitoring and evaluation of your projects. So if you hear the word monitoring, you may be thinking about the monitoring of your activities, and you may be thinking of using a Gantt chart or a journal, or maybe a similar type of activity tracking tool. And if you hear the word evaluation, you might be thinking of looking back at how a project has been implemented and to see what you can do better next time. However, in this webinar, we will be looking basically at the monitoring evaluation of your project results, meaning outputs, outcomes, and impacts of your Erasmus Plus project. So not actually on the monitoring and evaluation of activities. And so that is a key thing when we talk about monitoring evaluation. So, when you talk about monitoring evaluation, you often think about indicators. And so let's have a closer look at what indicators are. And so when we talk about indicators, they are like a factor or a variable that measures change. It is not the desired change itself, but something that you can measure that will tell you whether the change is taking place or has taken place already, or maybe it has not taken place yet. And so that is what we're looking at. So a well-defined indicator is about what is changing and who is changing, and bringing it together in like one sentence. And most likely you will also put in like who or where will this change take place. So and indicators can be defined for all the results of your projects. So for, again, what we have been talking about, project outputs, project outcomes, and impacts. And I would like to refer back to what we read earlier from someone who was saying, well, measuring outcomes is actually quite difficult to do. So let's have a look there. So an example. Yeah, you can see here what has changed, and that is the number of new curricula developed. And by the teacher is the who. So what has changed and who has changed, or who has been responsible for making that change happen. So this is what we call a typical output indicator, something that is produced in the context of a project. Now the next example, is the number of schools that have adopted the new curricula in region Ekkies, 5 times Ekkies here. So, but it's you can see it starts with who is changing and the schools have adopted the new curriculum. So the what is have adopted the new curriculum. So who has changed and what has changed, and this is what we would call a typical outcome indicator, a sign of behavioral change of in this case schools. And if you develop your indicators, it is very crucial that you say that you are very specific about what you are going to measure. And because the more specific you are, the more clear it is what is the change that you would like to measure. And that defines also the quality of your indicator, and being very precise in defining what it is that you are measuring. So again, if you would like to look a little bit more into the definition of indicators, you can look it up in chapter 3.3 in the handbook that we have been sharing also earlier in the chat box. Okay. Now, I would like you to make a distinction. I already heard someone say, well, we have something which are qualitative indicators and we have quantitative indicators. Yeah, but let's have a closer look at what they are. And so quantitative indicators, they provide numerical insights. This is about numbers. And think about them as numbers on the scoreboard telling you how the project is unfolding. And you can see a number of examples in the slide. The number of products that have been developed, or the number of people that have been reached. So it is about how many people have been reached, how many people have changed their behavior. And you make that into an indicator by saying number of products that have been developed, or the number of people that have been reached. Now, these indicators can be complemented or maybe changed also in the sense of, hey, we have qualitative indicators, which is more like a verbal or even a visual description of the change. And then the question is, what is the change? And this is more like a description of what has happened. Can we see if the products are of the right quality. And that's something that you can measure. And who was involved, and how have they been involved. So it's more a discussion. And you will be seeing at the bottom of the slide now, what is it useful? You can measure the quantitative indicators basically at the three key results levels: outputs, outcomes, and impacts. But qualitative impact indicators are very much more useful for looking at outcomes and impacts. Remember, outcomes, behavioral change, and impacts wider levels of society. So, and then, of course, it is important that you look at these questions. And if you say, well, how did it happen? It is important that you know, if you make a report for anyone, it is good that you understand why things have happened and how it has taken place. Okay. Having said that, I think it is time for us to do some kind of exercise on practicing indicators. And actually, we will go into breakout rooms, but I would like to explain a little bit first what the assignment is. So let us have a look at the cases that we would like to share with you. We have two projects that we will be working on. We have a mobility group, and we will have a partnership group, or both. It's up to you to decide what it is that you would like to do. Yeah, and we will share Mentimeter links with you. And in the Mentimeter link, there is a basic question that we would like to see answered, and that is, what would you like to measure during the implementation or even after the implementation of an intervention? And we would like you to think about one output indicator and one outcome indicator. So if you look at this mobility this mobility example, we would like you to think about perhaps an indicator for improved language skills, yes, and perhaps an indicator for teachers applying what they learn in their own schools. And think about what we said earlier, think about making it as specific as possible so that you are clear on what it is that you would like to measure. So that is the example for the mobility. And then we have another one, which is on the partnerships. And you will see how it evolves in the slide. Yeah, and this question is about a partnership project that is about organizing plastic waste clean campaigns, building a website for sharing information on environmental school projects. With outputs, students and local communities have experience with cleanup campaigns, a website that has been produced, and outcomes that schools and students together will keep the school clean, and local communities support environmental activities. So also here we would like to see if it is possible that you come up with one output and one outcome indicator. Now in the breakout rooms, you can click on both links. It is up to you to decide which one would you like to take first. And if you have time, you can do the second one. If there's not enough time to go and do both, that is also perfectly okay. But see if you can discuss together, like, hey, we have a nice indicator for this one. And then later you can share it in the Mentimeter that you will be getting a link to. Okay, Karin, I think you have the groups ready.
Yeah, let me share one more thing. So
okay.
I've indeed added the links in the chat. So please open them already, because maybe if you're in the groups, it might be difficult to open them. And if you open it, you should see a screen like this. So you see the Mentimeter, and you see again the same slide as Sam has just shown you. It might be a bit small, so you can click on the image to see it again. So this helps you in discussing it. Within your group, and you'll be with about 6 people in a group, a small group. Maybe it's nice if one of the people shares the screen in the group and shares this, and otherwise you all open it yourselves. Yeah. If there's any thing that will be difficult in the group, you can always come back to the plenary to ask a question, and we'll try to help you out. So we will also be available for helping. We'll go for about 15 minutes in the groups, and then we'll be back. So we'll be back at 25 past, approximately. If all is clear, then we'll open the groups right now. Let me see. Wait, I'll allow you to unmute. Yes, do you have an issue? KB8 or Olivia, can we help you?
Yeah, I'm afraid I just got back to the main session, and it wasn't my intention actually.
Yeah, same with me. I just got kicked out.
Okay, if you go down in your screen, you should be able to see somewhere like a pop-up around the breakout groups or 3 dots.
Let's see.
Is there an option more?
Breakout session by, yeah, I can just click on it and see what happens. So
Yeah,
I'll just
let's see if
participate
you
in
then
one of the
are
sessions.
automatically going there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it seems to work. Okay, see you in a bit.
Okay, yes.
Kari, maybe pause the recording in just a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome back. So you have all put in a number of indicators, and maybe we just go quickly through what it is that you see. Remember, an indicator is something that measures, something that measures the change that you would like to establish. So, for example, improve language skills, it says measuring the language abilities before and after the mobility in the participant. I assume that you would like to know the number of mobility participants who indicate that they have, or tell that they have increased language abilities, or even measure the abilities themselves. And so, and you see to the left or the right, you see improved language skills, quantitative, and rates of language attainment. So that's what we will measure. So, but I see that what changes the rates of language, and then again, how many went from A1 to A2. What I do see is that who produced the change. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think the students themselves may have produced the change. So let us see. The number of students, I see some people have been putting in the sign of numbers. I always like to think about numbers or percentages when we look at measuring change. And so we will say, hey, number of students who went up on language level from A1 to A2. That's really something that you can measure. And so we scroll down a little bit, then we will see more things. Karen, can you scroll down because it's your screen? Okay, show more. Pre-post test language skills. What being more confident? Okay, I do see that in a number of cases people find it difficult to indicate, well, what is it that we're actually going to measure? So an indicator says we will measure the number of students who will say that they feel more confident. But being more confident in speaking is something, yeah, how do you measure then being more confident in speaking in a foreign language? And so always think about what is it that we are going to measure. And so this was all about the outputs, I think, still. Maybe we have a look at the outcome. That is the next one. Who changed and what has been doing differently? Teachers apply what they learn, quantitative or qualitative teachers report improvements to their curriculum experience. It's a qualitative indicator. There's the improvements that you have been seeing. And the number of revised curricula could indeed definitely be something that you measure in the sense of, hey, what is the change? But then I would also like to include still in the indicator something like, well, who has been doing it? And so the number of revised curricula by the teachers. So always think about combining the who and the what in one particular indicator. And then to the right, I see teachers applying new methods of language skills. Put number and you have an indicator, or the percentage, you have an indicator. Yeah, the number of students maintaining context, absolutely, that's a really good indicator. And you also indicate how you're going to measure it by using a survey. Perfectly okay. Yeah, so let us see the last one. It is intended that the outcomes are the result of student mobility, or that's more like a question. Assess the remaining context of the students with a survey. That's also the method by which you would like to establish whether or not actually students remain in contact with the people that they are there. So indicators are something very clear, very precise. It says what measures, what is changing, and who is involved in the change, either producing it or in the sense of behavioral change. Okay, shall we go to the partnerships, Karen, and see what is there? Okay, output indicators for the partnerships. And then this was about the school being kept clean. And the websites that are being produced. How many people have visited the website? That's a good question. If you can measure it by putting numbers or the number of visits that are there. So click numbers actually says the people that have visited. Amount of visits on the website, same thing. Recycling behavior and awareness project consortium and everyone involved and reach. Yeah, I'm not sure if this refers to experience or if it refers to the website in the sense of output, but it definitely is something that you can measure. I would think this is more like a kind of outcome indicator, and that people have developed a behavior and awareness as that continues to be translating itself into behavior. Yeah, with people being involved and people being reached. Number of students attending, perfect. The number of students and communities have taken part in cleanup campaigns for the last time, perfect. Yeah, websites accessible for staff is also, it's a yes, no, it's about the quality of the website, it's also a good indicator. Yeah, so I see a lot of great indicators here. If you scroll down, Karen, then let's have a look if there's more to be the outcome. Oh, sorry. How many joint programs have we designed? Yeah, interesting. Interesting. So the number of programs that have been designed, that could be one for the experience. But in a way, if you have your results framework, that's something that we may have not have stressed earlier enough. But if you think about your output or your outcome, you would definitely like to have an indicator that says something about the specific output that you would like to measure. For example, students and local communities have experience with cleanup campaigns. This is what we would like to know. Did they gain the experience? How many people participated in the experience? Things like that. So keep it simple in the sense of what it is that you would like to measure. Keep it close to the results chain that you have identified for your project. Yeah, so when we look at outcome indicator, who changed and what is he or she doing differently, number of students and staff members at school engaging in cleaning activities, good one, yeah, because that is definitely the outcome level. You have a campaign and then later you hope that this will continue, that they will keep doing this. So you can measure if this still persists until the day of today. Waste reduction in school. Keep the school clean. Yes, okay. Do we see that the school is actually cleaner? So we measure this by looking at the waste reduction. We look at the recycling, less cleaning up needed. That's also okay. Keep it again here, maybe I'm repeating myself, but keep it close to the outcome as it has been formulated in your results chain. So do we see the school clean? Do we see the involvement of students in schools? Let me see, is there one on the community members that are there? I don't, yeah, local community, I see it there. Recycling. Okay, so there's one only on the local community support school environmental activities. Maybe it would have been nice to think about having an indicator there as well. But the key thing in the indicators is always think about the results chain and think about who is changing and what is changing, and that should be then combined and make it measurable. That's the key thing there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe there were quite some comments and questions in the chat in the meantime, and I tried to respond a bit to those. But as someone says, like, okay, is it always realistic to achieve these kind of results in your project? And of course, that depends. It depends on the type of project that you organize, what type of results you will aim for. If you don't do anything with teachers, then I would say then you don't include the teachers either as a result that they're changing, because then it doesn't make sense to have that. So make your results chain. This is an example, but make it realistic and relevant for your project. So you also gather really relevant data for what the results are. And
maybe in addition to that, Karen, just a second, and maybe in addition to that, the examples that we have shared are from real life projects, so implemented in the countries that we visited when we developed this impact handbook. So the idea is that results chains indeed are clear descriptions of what it is that you will do in order to achieve your results, and that is your outputs, your outcomes, and your impacts.
Yeah. I see some more questions. We can take them now, but we can also say we keep it for the Q&A, and that we finish the webinar first and we keep the Q&A at the end to dive a bit deeper in these issues. Is that okay? Because it's also a hand of Sirpa, and I see a question of Olivia coming in the chat. But we can also dive a bit further into that in the Q&A moment. Which will be in about a bit less than half an hour, I think, from now. Yeah?
Okay.
And maybe a last thing, someone said it was a bit fast about these examples. I will try if I can download them now from the Mentimeter and share them in the chat, so you can also keep it for yourself to look back at. I will try to do that now, yeah.
Okay, sorry, Karen, that I was a little bit quick when sharing my screen again, but I hope that's okay. So, and yeah, we've been talking about indicators, quantitative and qualitative indicators. Yeah, and some people already refer to, well, if we have an indicator, how are we going to collect data or information about that indicator? So that is by means of interviews or by means of surveys. And there are quite a number of data collection methods that you may be using to collect data or information about what has been going on, what has been achieved. And we would like to present you with a number of data collection methods. So you can also think, besides the indicators that you are thinking of, you can also think about data collection methods for collecting data about unexpected change, or maybe change that was not foreseen, maybe even negative experience. So it's not just collecting data about indicators as we have designed for our project, but also all kinds of other aspects that you would like to know about. So the four most frequent data collection methods that you have or can use are storytelling, that is about collecting from the people experiences about how they have, for example, participated in a mobility program. Tell the story of what has happened and how it has changed your life. And that can be the thing. So tell me the story. And you can also conduct interviews with a set of predefined questions that you would like to use and collect answers about what has changed and what not, and maybe the negative experiences as well. You may organize focus group discussions, which is about bringing people together to go and dig deeper a little bit in what happened and what are the changes that you have had. And surveys, I think you may have experiences with surveys, but of course, I'm not always sure about what kind of experience you have with kind of tools. So, and you may have some preferences for each of these tools to be used in your data collection method. So we would like to have a short poll with you to find out what kind of tools you actually prefer. for collecting data. And we would like to discuss that with you in a moment. So the poll is already appearing on your screen. Curious to find out what you have to say. And I see the answers coming in. We have about 95 participants yet who have, 100 who have put in their answers. Okay. Okay. We have. I suggest we share the results. Yes. Okay. I can see a strong preference for the use of. So I'm just curious. Maybe some people would like to share why they prefer surveys above the other tools that you're having. Can you share in the chat if that is okay? Someone, why would you prefer surveys? Okay. Okay. So no profound other, easy and quick, faster to analyze. Okay, absolutely. You can share it with everybody. You can do large numbers. It's easy to do. Oh my goodness, you have all the kind of reasons why you come up with that. Very interesting. Can I ask someone then to say, well, hey, I think storytelling is really the greatest method for me to collect data on monitoring. Can someone tell me why he or she said that storytelling would be the key method? Okay. Storytelling is a marketing tool. Okay. Interesting. Get emotions. Okay. In surveys, you don't get emotions, or at least not as good as you get it in storytelling. It gives you different types of information. I think that is the key thing. Real information. It motivates. Okay. You can ask questions. Measure needs. Okay. Wonderful. Yeah. In depth. Okay. So for the people who prefer surveys, think also about, and for the people who do storytelling, think about if you collect data to make use of a variety of instruments and combine it, if that would be possible, so you can have the benefits of both methods for your data collection. So if you look at the methods that you would prefer for evaluation, I see roughly the same type of distribution. More people will be saying surveys, storytelling much less, and maybe I would like to have a look at the answers that you have, the methods that are there. I see 22 people have answered that. Karen, I cannot see that. Can you share that, Karen, if you want the answers on that? The third question.
Yes, let me see. I have to show it in Zoom itself, so I just was looking for it, but I have to replace your screen.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me show. It makes a word cloud out of it. I see reports, meetings, reviews, peer reviews, maybe databases, participants, observations. We see diaries. Sometimes I think you wrote 2 words and then it made it out of. That's a bit of a pity. So if you have something of 2 words, maybe you can better put it in the chat. We had hoped it would come nicely here in the word clouds. But we see different other methods. Yeah.
Okay. But that's okay. So more methods to be used, and I think it's also a lot about collecting data from other sources of information. And so
Yeah.
making use of secondary source of information. But journals I like. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing this. Let's go again to the data collection methods. Well, we have just discussed that a little bit. I think it is nice to reflect again on, hey, you have the outputs which are actually the products of your activities, and therefore we say it is relatively easy to collect data about your direct results or your outputs. And so, but if it is about behavioral change, the outcomes, and I think someone already mentioned it earlier, gathering data about that behavioral change and why the change at the impact level is actually much more challenging. But at the same time, it is very useful for learning and for the development of future projects. So we would like to actually think about making use of the more more participatory tools, focus group discussions, and as people have been saying earlier, you collect more in-depth information. You understand better the reasons why people actually have changed their behavior, what has gone well, what has gone wrong. There are all kinds of benefits to having focus group discussions or even direct interviews with people, because if you really want to understand the change process better, yes, you may want to go for more qualitative methods and maybe less for the surveys which generate more quantitative answers or quantifiable answers, at least, than you see. Surveys, of course, also have a disadvantage that people will just decide to give an answer that they think you will like to hear. Yeah, and then you will get information that may not completely be reliable. Okay, so we would like to do a small individual exercise with you. Yeah, so we will go again to the same projects that you're having, and we would like to think of this partnership project that we had earlier. So think about you organizing a focus group discussion with the key stakeholders who have participated in the project, and you may remember who they are. I'm putting the results framework at the bottom. Yes, it is about students. It is about school staff. Yes, it's about local communities and maybe other stakeholders as well. And you are interested actually to find out if change has taken place and or this change may still likely to become a reality. Now, we would like you to think about what we would call triggering questions. So questions that will make sure that everybody has the opportunity to say his or her experience and tell it, and do that in an environment in which they can actually share their experiences. And so we are inviting you to share a number of questions in the chat box, and we will see what comes out of that. So please go ahead, triggering questions that you would like to share in a focus group discussion in relation to this particular project. And you may focus a little bit more on the outcome and on the impact side, if you like. Okay, go ahead. And maybe think about this. It is a project that has been going on for some time, or maybe about to finish, or maybe it has finished already. Yeah, so it is not at the start of the project, but at a certain moment in time. Let's see what you come up with. Okay. I see interesting questions coming up, like are the students showing excitement for the new activities? Is the momentum still strong? I'm not sure who the question will be answered, but I think maybe you will ask this from the school staff, or maybe from the people from the communities, to see if they think that the students are actually engaged and excited. Romana says, what have you changed about your daily life after the project? Okay, so is this about schools? Let me see. Okay, schools, staff keeping clean. Okay. Maga says, do you think keeping the environment clean is a political responsibility or an individual responsibility? Okay. Yeah, okay. That's an interesting question. In a focus group discussion, I'm curious to find out, like, who will answer this question and what you want to get out of it. Which change to now do you appreciate most? Okay, that's a real nice one. What do you find most challenging in order to implement the policies? That is thinking about the impact, the relation between impact, and that information would help you think about possible actions that you could do in order to improve the relation between the project and possible policy development activities. Share one daily activity that you do after participating in the project. Is the school cleaner than before the project? Okay. Yeah. What about the cost of the project? Okay. Yeah. Can you describe ways in which you are doing things differently now? Have you seen more activity around the subject within local communities? The main obstacles faced? Which piece of information was the most interesting? Okay. Wonderful. And many, many, many more questions I see coming up. How's your attitude changed as a result of participating? Okay, I see many open questions. Yeah, and what I would say is that at the moment you develop your focus group discussion with school staff, with students, and with local communities, it is good to think about, well, the possible questions that you may do. Right? We're in the kind of collective brainstorm. All questions are important, but it's always good to think about, if we ask this question, then what kind of information maybe we getting about the project and the results it intended to achieve. And do we see that people have participated? Do we see that the changes have been as perceived, or maybe there have been changes that we did not perceive or present in the beginning, and that did become a fact. Yeah, so there's all kinds of things that you would like to see. How do you feel? I see a lot of questions about feelings and about behavioral change coming up, and also about the levels of participation. Okay, wonderful. I think there's a lot of wealth in these questions. I would like to ask the people from Austria, and I know they're there, to have a look at the questions that are there and see if these questions can be used to organize a focus group discussion around this specific project that was implemented in Austria. So the questions are very, very useful and very valid. Okay. Thank you for this. I would like to go to the next slide. Let me see. And that is something, sorry, and that will be taken over by Karin. Karin, go ahead.
Yes. So before we start the video, yeah, so we just checked, like, okay, how you can do a focus group discussion. I think many of you do also direct interviews with individuals, and what we want to show you is also a video that was made in the Czech Republic from 2 students that have been interviewed mainly for communication purposes. And they have been interviewed before they were going on the exchange and afterwards. And it's really nice. In this 4-minute video, you will see how they were thinking about the exchange beforehand and also afterwards. So you do see a bit of a change. And I want you to closely look at the video and reflect for yourself if you would really like to get qualitative information about the most important change in their personal lives. And what would you like to ask them if you were to interview them? So I'm going to show you this video. It takes about 4 minutes, like I said. The thing is, it's all in Czech. So for those who don't understand it, there are subtitles, but they're automatically generated. So sometimes they're not 100% perfect, but I think they're good enough for us to understand. So let me show it. I have to share the sounds. So let's have a look. And think for yourself, what would you ask those students to get information about their important changes?
Já se jmenuji Štěpán Colonsky, jsem ze Vsetína a studuju obor podnikání.
Jsem Kateřina Doloželová, pocházím ze Šternberka, ale studuju v Olomouci na střední odborné škole obchodu a služeb v Olomouci. Studuji kadeřnici.
Jedeme do Portugalska, nebo spíše letíme. Letíme tam na 15 dní a budeme se tam zabývat management a podnikání v oboru ekologie a obnovitelné zdroje.
Jedu na Kypr, konkrétně do města Larnaka. Pojedu tam na 3 měsíce.
Určitě se těším, bude to super zážitek, co takhle jsem slyšel, že to stojí za to.
Věřím a doufám v to, že se naučím líp anglicky ještě, že vlastně nějaká se na úrovni se v klidu domluvím, ale nějak zdokonalit tu angličtinu bych rozhodně chtěla. Určitě něco k mému oboru, co se týče třeba, nevím, stříhání, foukání a takhle, že tam je to vlastně jiný prostředí, je to vlastně u moře, je to jiný než tady u nás, kde se tady střídá většině počasí.
Ale jediné, z čeho mám obavy, je, že portugalsky vůbec neumím a neznám ten kraj a jaké tam jsou zvyky a co mě tam vůbec čeká.
Samozřejmě tam jsou vždycky nějaké obavy, bych řekla, ale myslím si tak podvědomě, že vlastně jsou zbytečný svým způsobem, protože člověk si rychle zvykne na různý jiný prostředí.
Určitě to setkání bylo super. Přineslo mi toho, že se nemám fakt bát do toho jít a odhodlání a takový ten stres, to se mě trochu sundalo.
Pomohlo mi, hlavně v tom uvědomění vlastně, co od té stáže čekám, protože tady, jak jsou ty workshopy, tak mě by předtím nenapadlo nad tím extra přemýšlet. Předtím bych si řekla, super, nějaká dovča, ale ono to má hlubší význam, než jenom se někam jít podívat. Je to vlastně i o tom podívat se, jak to probíhá i v jiných zemích, kde se mluví úplně jiným jazykem, člověk je závislý sám na sobě, nikdo mu jiný vlastně nepomůže. Takže jsem ráda tady z tohohle pohledu a ještě skrz to, že jsem poznala nový kamarády tady. Co jsem na stáži vlastně dělala? No, chodila jsem do práce, měla jsem tady domluvenou práci v kadeřnictví, všechno bylo zařízené, když jsme dojeli, bylo to super. Tyhle dny nám byly vyplněny samozřejmě různými výlety, které byly vlastně vymýšleli nejen učitelkami, ale i námi samotnými, protože jsme měli dost peněz na to, tak nemuseli jsme se strachovat, že bychom nevyžili.
Já jsem se zabýval vlastně ekologií v Portugalsku, jak to tam řeší a jaké mají oni nápady.
Co mi stáž dala a jestli jsem se něco naučila, musím říct, že mi toho dělá opravdu hodně, protože do té doby jsem byla taková, že jsem se čeho vlastně bála. Měla jsem strach vlastně i před tím jazykové bariéry, ale zjistila jsem, že vůbec není proč se tohohle bát, protože anglicky mluví skoro všude, celkem na normální úrovni a vaše angličtina se vlastně taky zlepší po další době. Ať chcete nebo ne, to je takový přirozenější než ve škole. Takže minimálně ta angličtina se mi zlepšila, určitě věci v oboru, lepší práce s lidmi a i vlastně v tom anglickém jazyce jsem s nimi komunikovala, takže to bylo vlastně úplně přirozená věc pro mě potom. Otevřelo mi to oči, že nejsme vlastně závislí jenom na České republice.
Stáž mi dala to, že se určitě není čeho bát, není to tak těžké vycestovat s Erasmem, jak se zdá, a dalo mi to určitě zkušenosti a určitě zlepšení se v jazyce.
Jestli bych to doporučila i ostatním studentům, já můžu jenom potvrdit, že to bylo úplně super zážitek, takže ano, doporučuju.
Tak určitě bych to doporučil, protože fakt, jak jsem říkal, není čeho se bát, všechno je zařízené a je to naprosto jednoduché.
Yes. So what I really like about this is that you literally see them physically changing after their experience. So that's very nice. I hope you could follow it well, the video. So let me share again the question. So imagine you can have an interview with these students who participated in the project, and you're interested in the change that it has created. They mentioned, of course, some changes, but now try to think a bit more like a longer term, the outcome or impact changes. What kind of questions would you ask them? And you can write it in the chat. And some people recognize accents even. Yeah, nice advocates for the program indeed. Yes, some nice questions are coming in. A question could be, are you still in touch with the people you connected with during the mobility? Yes, especially if you have, as a result, students maintain European contacts. It's really nice to, because you have defined it, then it's easier to define also your question. So you have your question, are you still in contact? And how are you staying in contact? How worthwhile is it for you? That's very nice. How do you see your own language improvements? Yes, but it's related to your outputs. But that's an important question as well. What did you learn professionally and personally from this experience? Yes, it can give you maybe some also unexpected changes. That's also important to always look at, right? You have your results chain, you define your changes that you expect, but sometimes asking a bit more broader question can give you more unexpected changes and gives you also this learning like, hey, our programs bring about these type of changes. Maybe new relationships that didn't fit in your results chain, but maybe new relationships come out of this exchange. Do they look different to their own country and culture now? Very interesting. And another question, the language skills has influenced their day-to-day life, access to more online information. Yeah, so that is indeed a bit longer term, not just if you improved your English, but how did that help you? Very good one. What concerns did you have before your exchange? What helped you to overcome those concerns? And what would you have liked to know before your exchange? Yeah, that's an interesting question. Mainly, I think about for yourself as an organization, right? So to understand better the needs of those participants and to adjust your communication. So maybe to adjust your activities. It can be. So again, you see how one question gives you information about sometimes activities, sometimes about output, and sometimes about outcomes. And that is interesting to see, like, why are you actually asking those questions? Are you interested in adjusting your activities itself, or are you more interested in the longer term change? Yeah. What is the most impactful for you? What do you think is useful for your career? Are they more brave for the choices about the future in general? Very nice. Did it change something in your daily life at home? And if yes, what changed? Also, a bit longer term changes. Again, about language, overcoming language and culture barriers. How did you overcome it? How are you going to apply your newly acquired skills, knowledge in your career? I think that's also very interesting, a bit like looking future-oriented. There's a whole interview questionnaire here. Nice. Different questions. Tell us where you've been, how long were you there, what did you achieve, what were the challenges, did your words materialize, turn out differently, what would like to tell others? Yeah, those were, I think, a bit the questions that they asked in this video. And I'd like to challenge you also to go a bit further, like what did you really learn and implement, or do you still implement today, or what are the changes you still have after your exchange? If you think of your future, what's the main thing you experienced during mobility which will affect it? Very nice. Considering the whole mobility preparations and all, what have you learned? What was your best experience? Yeah. So many questions. I don't think I can read all because there's too many.
But I would like to single out the last one, Karen, which is what were the most negative aspects of your mobility, and what advice would you give to your classmates? That was also really nice, a little bit different one than what kind of problems did you have and how did you get over them? It's an opportunity to really get into the other side of it as well, and the interviews to learn about what has happened and what has affected also negative.
Yeah, and there again, probably you don't want to use that mainly for visibility. So again, it's about what is the reason you collect your data? Is it for your own internal learning? Then those questions are very important to ask. Also about negative aspects. If it's mainly for communication, what I expect was the main reason for this video. You have different type of questions, of course. But what I want to mainly emphasize once again is indeed, I think I saw also one more question about perspective on European identity. I think it's relates more on the impact level. Think again, like if you ask questions for every level, it's very easy to ask questions often about the activity itself, how people experience the activity. And you see also in this video a lot about the activity and the direct results, but challenge yourself to look a bit further. So there's outcomes is real behavior change after the activity and maybe even the impacts. That's, I think, the main message we want to give here, because it can give you very valuable information for the future.
And also if you have your results framework clearly established, your results chain, it is good to ask to look at that and see, well, if this is what we want to achieve in the sense of change, your outputs and outcomes and impacts, and then what are the questions that we would like to ask to the people who have participated in the project? And so it's not something, we do mobility, let's think about question. Now you have your results chain, make use of that.
And maybe one thing, it's easy to make this too big and too complicated, right? To make your results chain really big and complicated with many results. And for every result, you maybe have like 10 questions. And you're like, oh, how am I ever going to monitor and evaluate all this? So that's why we also really want to emphasize, try to make it as simple as possible. Focus on the main changes that you think are important and only monitor and evaluate these. Of course, if you have the time and budget, you can do more. But many of you are restricted in that. So focus on the simple things, also the methods that suit you in the time and the budget you have. And you rather do maybe some interviews with a few people than with 100 people if that gives you enough information already, right? So that will depend. If you're maybe working for a big university, you might have different means than when you're working for a small NGO. So that might be different for every organization. Okay. So what we want you to draw back to is in the beginning of this webinar, we shared you the project design form, and we also shared it in previous webinars. And I think we'll share the link again in the chat right now. Because this design form can help you. If you're looking for a format, how to capture your results and afterwards your indicators, you can write it in this form, for example. So the page 2 of this form, you can find a table, which I also share on the screen, where you can describe your outcome and your indicators for your outcomes, how you'll measure it, and when you will measure it. So this can help you in your project design to define already what you will do and when. And again, keep it simple. Don't make it too ambitious. Make it useful for yourself. So really think what could help you, what information is really interesting for you as an organization. With that, we're coming already to the end of this webinar. Don't leave yet, we still have time for Q&A, but before we go to the Q&A, I want to summarize what we have talked about today. So we talked that about through monitoring and evaluation, you can obtain information about the results of your Erasmus Plus projects. Now, this is useful in improving your actual and future projects and for sharing success stories. By using a combination of quantitative and qualitative methods, you can capture the size of your project results as well as the reasons underlying the occurrence of these changes. Yeah, so, and of course, it's important to also make use of that information. So not only, it's nice, of course, if you have to report to it, it's good that you can report it, but really see for yourself, how can you use it for visibility, for learning, etc. That's what we wanted to say for this webinar. But we also seen many questions already in the chat. So feel free to stay so we can go through those questions. We will also allow you to unmute so you will be able to further elaborate on your questions. But for those who want to leave or have to leave because it's past 11 here in the Netherlands, I don't know, maybe for you it's 1 hour earlier or later. But for you, if you have to leave, you're free to leave, of course. And then we hope to see you again next week. Next week, Tuesday, we will have the last webinar of this series about managing for impact. And I will dive a bit further on how you can engage stakeholders, how you can manage risks in your project. So we hope to see you there. So let's go to the questions for now. I will stop sharing. And I think...
Okay. Yeah. I see a very interesting question.
Yeah. But
I see a very interesting question by Jaromir, how to objectively assess, measure the fulfillment of qualitative criteria or indicators. This is an important part of the application and project evaluation. I think qualitative criteria, I assume that this is indicators. I think that if you do that, you have your methods in order to collect qualitative information or information on qualitative indicators. So what you can do is then you can use all kinds of software-related programs that may tell you, well, do we see a significant change in the answers of people on this particular indicator? Yeah, so it requires a different type of analysis, a more qualitative analysis of the changes that you have seen. And counting is not so much part of it. So yeah, but indeed it is not as easy to measure in a way as indicators that are of a quantitative nature. But still, you can say from qualitative data, you can say, well, we see that change has taken place because the data tells us and the feedback tells us that there are signs of change that we have seen. Okay. So that's one question. Where do you put the levels? Informed awareness and attitude change, which all become before behavioral change. Okay, yeah. A good point. If we talk about results change, we often talk about outputs. Informed and awareness is something that is within your sphere of control. We definitely think that is more at the output level. You can control that people are aware of things, but that putting that awareness into practice to see the behavioral change, yes, that is definitely an outcome. That's definitely a next level. Yeah, so correct. Are those pre-stages part of output? Yes. Yeah. Good questions, Sarah. Maybe a question again on, can we find the presentation somewhere later on? Many thanks for this webinar. So the presentation, yeah, Karin?
Yeah, I responded to you, but what I can do now, I will try quickly to make a PDF of the slides and share it also in the chat. But like I responded already, we will share the PowerPoint and recording with Nuffic, so the NA, the Netherlands, and they will share it further on their website, but also the other NAs. I can't promise that every NA puts it on their website because that's their own decision. But let me. I can't share the PowerPoints yet. I'm trying to share the PowerPoint also in the chat in the meantime. So let me give me
Okay.
1 minute. Maybe Sam, you can take a question.
In the meantime, focus group discussions, how to run successfully a focus group discussion, how long, how many people, how to prepare the group in advance, how to moderate the discussion. There's a lot of literature on focus group discussions. I would recommend you to have a look at it. For information, we asked similar questions to ChatGPT for the preparation of some materials that we had in relation to another group, also to see how you can use AI in developing your own methods. And it came out pretty good, I would say. But quickly, a successful focus group discussion, it depends a lot on the facilitation itself. It usually takes 1 hour to 2 hours, 8 to 15 people. Prepare the group in advance, make sure that people feel comfortable, that they are willing to participate, that they understand what will be done with the results, that it is not something that they will be disclosing, so you have to provide a kind of safety. And moderating the discussion is actually by means of triggering questions that it's a general facilitation technique that you use. You listen to someone and then you ask people to reflect on what the others are saying. So you create a discussion and you lead the discussion rather than with triggering questions rather than doing a lot of direct and closed questions to people. That's a quick answer to that. But Jutta, please have a look at materials out there, because there's a lot of things on focus group discussions. Okay. Do you have tips on instruments for intervention, e.g. for doing surveys? Tips for evaluation. Start with the right questions and then look with the right tools to get answers to those questions. That's what we always do, and make use of mixed methods approach. So use quantitative survey related evaluation, data collection mechanisms with focus group discussions and key informant interviews. Gives you a better understanding of the size of the change and what happened. And so mixed methods, definitely. I experienced difficulties to define indicators for our small-scale partnership project because of the short time of the project. Outputs, even more outcomes are not so obvious due to the short period of time. I think that in any project you will have to define what your outcomes are. So make sure that you are clear on what kind of outcomes are there. And I think also have a look at the manual that are prepared, because there you will see how you can develop a good results framework, and on the basis of that you can define your indicators. Make use of the experience also of other people in the sector. Make use of the NAs who also know a little bit more about this. So see if you can use the resources available. And also here, again, if you think about, hey, this is my results frame, what would be good indicators? Ask our friend ChatGPT. I'm not a real advocate, but I think it is helpful to, at least to trigger your own thinking. Okay. The polls on the subtitles, that's a pity, Sirpa. I'm sorry that you had these issues. That's the issues with the subtitles in the polls. I'm not sure what happened. I hope that next time you will be able to attend next week, and you will not be facing these issues. Will we have discussion next time about how often do you measure and what process throughout the project do you implement to measure the impact? And there's one key issue about measuring impact, and that is impact is often also beyond the horizon of your project. So the project stops, and then do we have impact? So if you have a longer term project, it is easier to measure impact. Then if you have a short term project that stops, and then there's no direct follow-up project to the one that you have been doing. So in that case, it may be difficult to say, well, this was the real impact, but you can at least say, well, these are the steps that we see, or the signs that we see that the evaluation is coming, the impact is coming, is actually becoming materializing. If I create a survey, what are the expectations in terms of quality, validity, reliability, and representativeness? Good question. If you go to SurveyMonkey and you say, well, how do I create a good survey? They will give you all the tips that you can imagine to create a good survey. So also there, in the modern era, it's something that there's a lot of things out there to create a good quality survey, and we often use these materials from SurveyMonkey in that regard. Okay. Once again, linked to the handbook for mobility projects. For mobility impact, we would need to interview alumni who were on exchange during their duties. Need is something that is difficult to establish, because it is up to you to decide how you're going to get information from the people who participate in your projects and your programs. And Karin already said, if you are a big institution with lots of resources, then it is a completely different story than when you're a small organization with little resources. So see what is best for you. But I think try at least to come up with something that works for you, for your own learning, for your own reflection on, what we did it lead to the desired results, or were there other changes that have happened as a consequence of what we did, unexpected or maybe even negative? And a number of interviews you can always conduct. I would rather think about having a small survey and some kind of interviews with a group of students collectively, a focus group discussion maybe, yes, or collecting experience and recording it also, so that you have that information for later sharing with others. Okay. Yeah, you want to add something, Karin?
Yeah, well, I was thinking earlier in the webinar, someone asked about the difference between quality assurance and monitoring and evaluation. And I think it's an interesting question. I don't think it's been answered yet, right? So
No.
I was thinking quality assurance, in my view, it's checking more like the quality of your activities. So how are they implemented? Is that the right way? Do we adhere to certain standards, which can be various, and it can be related to how it looks visually. If you have to give a presentation, you have certain quality standards for that, or if you have give a certain training, you have certain quality standards there as well. And with your results, you can really see what results did it bring about. And of course, it also says something again about the quality of how you did it. So yes, there are definitely linkages to it, but I think your monitoring and evaluation, ideally, it goes further than your activities.
That's Victor Mason who asked that. So Victor, I hope that's okay. Justina has an answer about concrete examples, what online programs and platforms can be useful to monitor and measure impact. Personally, what I like very much is the program Padlet, because Padlet allows people to upload stories, upload their changes, and invite comments and suggestions by other people in a very easy way. And you can upload videos, you can upload photographs. It is also a fun type of sharing your experiences. So if you think about using a platform for joint learning and for joint measuring one way or another of the changes from an individual perspective, but then the whole, then Padlet could be an interesting tool to use. But the only thing is you have to guide people and in order to and facilitate, and maybe also to monitor what's going on. So you have to moderate the Padlet in a way to make sure that you have the right things there. So that's something, but it's a useful, very user-friendly tool for monitoring higher level changes, behavioral changes, impact changes. Okay. Jolijn is giving an answer to recommend to have a researcher to have a look at your survey. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. And that is the same thing that we have been seeing earlier also. So you can develop a brainstorm and come up with lots of questions and lots of ideas on how to measure things. It's always good to think about what will work, what will not work, get an expert opinion, get opinions of people at the NA to see, hey, will this really work? Will this be doable? Will this be feasible for us with our resources to have and capacities to have a tool or a system in place that will help us collect the information that we need? Yeah, so researcher is good, yeah, but make sure that it's a collective exercise. Okay. Lots of questions, lots of answers. I hope they have also been useful to you. Okay.
Are there any more questions? A lot of thumbs up. Nice.
Wonderful.
If you still think later on the question, you can also reach out to someone, myself, via LinkedIn. You can find us. So we can always connect and then reach out later. And look back at the Impact Handbook. I shared the link to the website of Nuffic, where you also see that the handbook has been translated to multiple languages. So it's not only available in English, it's really available in multiple languages. So that's maybe good to know in case you are more comfortable in, I think it's 8 languages I see here. Czech, German, English, Finnish, Greek, Dutch, Portuguese. SE, is that Swedish? And SI. I don't know what SI is. Slovenian, maybe?
SL maybe, yeah.
SL, maybe it is. Yeah, Slovenia. Yeah. So there's a lot of languages available. So if that's preferred to have in another language, you can also look at there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. If there's no questions anymore, we really want to thank you for your participation. I think it was very interactive. So even though we're a big group, I felt like we had the interaction with you. So thank you also for all your active contributions in chats, in the Mentimeter, etc. So I'll share once again the link to the handbook. Yep. Shall I share the link to all the languages right away? That maybe is easier. Here's the link to the Impact Handbook languages. Yep. Thank you, and hope to see you next week with our last webinar on managing impact.
See you next week.
See you. Bye-bye.